Welcome, everyone. We have a lot of people joining today, and we're all so looking forward to Dr. Alan Rothblatt sharing his Asmalyk collection and other rare Turkmen Asmalyks in what promises to be a wonderful webinar. So for those of you who've joined the New England Rug Society webinars before, you know that there's a few minutes up front while our audience joins. And when I see that most of you are in the room, I will transition to Julia Bailey to introduce our speaker. Welcome, everyone. We're waiting for the audience to join, and we'll move to introducing and then starting our wonderful speaker in just a few minutes. We welcome everyone. It's a warm spring day here in New England, and wherever you are around the world, we welcome you to our webinar with Alan Rothblatt. We will be starting in a few minutes when everyone is logged in. Welcome to all of you joining us today. On behalf of the New England Rug Society, we have another great webinar with a wonderful speaker. A few more minutes of patience while the audience logs into the webinar. We welcome all of you to join us today. In just a couple moments, we will be starting with an introduction to our wonderful speaker, Alan Rothblatt. We're just pausing to get everyone into the webinar. We welcome you all from wherever you are. A lot of people joining us today, and we have a really wonderful presentation. It's been such a pleasure working with Alan, getting this one ready. And Julia Bailey and I are so looking forward to presenting Alan Rothblatt today. Welcome. We're going to start in just a few moments. Thanks to those of you who came in on time and are patient as we see many more people joining the webinar. Welcome, everyone. Let us get started. On behalf of the New England Rug Society, we're so delighted to present Alan Rothblatt today in a webinar on rare Turkmen Asmalyks. A few housekeeping words before we get started. Those of you who've joined our webinars before are familiar with our format. So our speaker will present for approximately 50 minutes. You may submit questions via the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen in writing. Questions will be asked to our speaker at the end of the presentation. It doesn't matter when you type them in, so feel free to type in a question whenever it occurs to you. Questions will only be taken in writing from Q&A. No questions will be taken from chat, and no raised hands will be called on. So again, if you have a question, type it into Q&A, and I will be handling questions with Alan Rothblatt at the end of this wonderful presentation. We have people from 44 countries with us today, and a particularly warm welcome to all of you who've joined us. So my colleague Julia Bailey from the New England Rug Society will introduce our speaker, Alan Rothblatt.
Thank you, Jean, and from me too, welcome to all of you. On behalf of the New England Rug Society, I'm honored to introduce today's speaker, Alan Rothblatt. Alan has retired from his medical career as and he had me say this, a minimally invasive surgeon, but his sideline endures. He's been acquiring Turkmen rugs for over 30 years and has given many talks and international meetings of Turkmen rug collectors and at Rug Collectors Weekend, which you'll hear more about at the end of his presentation. He's also passionate about adventure travel, which you'll likewise hear about. Today, he turns his focus to those rare and captivating examples of Turkmen wedding trappings known as Asmalyks. Now, from wherever you are, whether you're a Turkomaniac or not, please join me in welcoming Alan Rothblatt. Over to you, Alan.
Thank you, Julia. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to start by thanking the New England Rug Society for inviting me to speak today about rare Turkmen Asmalyks. I've numbered the slides at the bottom and the center to make it easier for us to refer back to a specific slide during the question and answer portion of the presentation today. Older Turkmen weavings are highly valued by many collectors due to the extraordinary artistic qualities they possess. Designs may appear uncomplicated on first impression, but a more in-depth assessment uncovers the complex weaving techniques used by Turkmen women to create these amazing weavings. Despite a limited range of colors, older Turkmen weavings contain a tremendous assortment of shades which contribute to their alluring nature. Turkmen women not only possess exceptional weaving skills, but they create these pieces with great care and a deep sense of pride. This is especially true for the weavings created by the bride for her dowry. The intended use of the Asmalyk is to adorn both flanks of the camel carrying the bride, who's located inside of the kejibi in the wedding procession to her new home. The marriage ceremony is extremely important to the Turkmen. Wedding trappings are both a significant part of the dowry, and they also provide an important ritualistic function. It is thought that designs on Asmalyks may serve as amulets with a power to protect the person from harm, or talismans that lead to positive outcomes, such as good health, fertility, and prosperity. The word Asmalyk translates to Lord or ruler of heaven for the prefix, and to the prefix is sky or heaven, and the suffix Malik is Lord or ruler. It has been suggested by Eberhard Hermann that Asmalyk, besides having protective power amulets, is really in and of itself a talisman for helping the bride in her later journey to heaven when her earthly life is finished. This presentation will explore some extraordinary examples of Asmalyks from multiple Turkmen tribes. My goal is to highlight what features makes these few Asmalyks differentiate themselves and be highly desired by us collectors. We will delve into design derivation. We will learn what a pair of Asmalyk really means. We'll question some beliefs regarding dating and attribution. And lastly, there will be an in-depth historical review of Techie bird Asmalyks. Don't worry, the images will be enlarged to allow us to really appreciate the beauty and details of these distinguished weavings. The Yomut tribe have produced by far the largest number of Asmalyks, as well as the greatest variety of designs. Finding a Yomut Asmalyk for sale from the end of the 19th century or later is still relatively easy, since many of these examples use natural dyes and reasonable quality wool. They can still be pretty interesting to own. A large percentage of these later Asmalyks, though, were produced for commercial use and didn't possess the same artistic and technical excellence as the older ones. When a very old Asmalyk is encountered with a spacious drawing, ancient motifs, saturated colors, phenomenal wool quality, and dynamic proportions, it separates itself from the vast majority of later ones. These are the Asmalyks that I'll highlight today. Asmalyks are different from chuvals and torbas in several ways. They almost exclusively have their field design based on only the vertical axis. A very common field design seen in Yomut Asmalyks are the ashik ornaments within a lattice. Is it coincidental that the word ashik in Arabic means in love? The drawing, as well as the choice of colors of this Asmalyk, create a feeling of vibratory movement that makes the Asmalyk stand out within the group. This Asmalyk has a very spacious drawing that uses a large amount of a weaving technique called offset knotting to give a more fluid and archaic feeling that is consistent with its 18th century age. The ashik ornaments that we saw on the last slide in the field are only in the border of this weaving. A different ornament called the air gulls are used within the lattice compartments of the field, as shown here. A rare subgroup of the Yomut lattice design Asmalyks have a striking red background for the field color. It just so happens that one of this rare group with ashik ornaments on a red ground is for sale at an auction today in Vienna. The next member of the group has a similar overall design, but is drawn in a way to create a more spacious and calm feeling. Some of these subtleties are what a collector is really looking for to differentiate between two great pieces and pick the one that really is rare and exceptional. Despite these two Asmalyks having an almost identical field design with a similarly drawn air gull within a blue lattice on a red ground, the overall appearance reads quite differently. This is due to the fact that the Asmalyk on the left has a white background for the main border, and the Asmalyk in the lower right has a blue background for the main border. Despite these differences, it almost feels like they could have been woven by the same weaver and maybe even used as a pair adorning the flanks of a camel. Our next group of Yomut five-sided Asmalyks with a tree design is one of my favorite. This specific piece has several features that really make it exceptional. First of all, there is a large amount of offset knotting throughout, and that helps the weaver have a curvilinear appearance. And we see that here in the tree branches. An amulet or talisman is woven into the apex of this piece, and it looks like there's lightning bolts that are emanating from it. And lastly, the borders are done in a very archaic fashion with insects at the bottom sides, making it really a very interesting piece and separating itself from many of the others in the group. You'll notice that there are 5 tree forms, and I'll just use my pointer, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, to highlight the fact that almost all Turkmen Asmalyks, not just Yomut, use 5 tree forms in the field. Here we go. One of the rare ones that has deviated from that. Here is a Turkmen Asmalyk that I've never seen one that I can think with such pronounced curvilinear drawing. It's interesting to note that there are only 3 trees, as I mentioned. I didn't have access to the measurements of this Asmalyk to see if it's smaller, and maybe that was why there was only 3 trees employed in the design. I don't know, but very, very interesting Asmalyk. The next Asmalyk is somewhat of a hybrid. It has the chic tree-like design with, again, 5 trees, but there's no lattice. And I think that in this specific piece, with no lattice and very saturated colors, especially that deep green, it creates a feeling of infinite movement that I found very attractive. It is a small-sized Asmalyk. It only measures 50 centimeters wide, which is less than half the size of most of the other Asmalyks we'll see today. One theory is that it could have adorned the flank of a young camel that is often included in the wedding procession to symbolize the bride's fertility. This group of white and red 7-sided Asmalyks is characterized by simplicity of overall design and colors. It utilizes small talismanic ornaments, which, when you combine it with the simplicity, creates a powerful and archaic statement. We'll take a look at some larger images of this group to better appreciate the details. The Asmalyk displays multiple talismanic objects in a way that maintains their ancient symbolic value, such as koshaks, which in Turkmen is gökçe, and it means ram horn. Quiquunks, which are seen in both the areas on the bottom, are similar to when you look at a die and you see the 5-dot symbol. And this is used throughout the bottom area as an amulet to ward off the evil eye. The very best weavers incorporate design features, sometimes very subtle, that function as a signature to differentiate their weaving from all the others. More than any others in this group, this Asmalyk feels like you can look through a window into the future when you stare at the field. Next, we will look at another very rare group, the red 7-sided Asmalyks. As we get closer, the details take over and create additional subliminal messages. There are small shimmering stars represented by the diamonds in the top of the field, or as the Beatles might say, Lucy in the sky with diamonds. Once again, we see the koshak symbol, and over on the right is another of the quiquunks used again. The ornaments at the bottom of this Asmalyk have been described by some as being bats. I've confirmed that there are bats in Turkmenistan. In Chinese culture, 5 bats represent the 5 blessings of health, wealth, long life, peace, and happiness. But I could not find any information on what a bat symbolizes for the Turkmen. When I look closely, each ornament may actually represent a single koshak or ram's horn oriented in one of 2 directions. As I discussed earlier, the intended use of the Asmalyk is to adorn the flanks on both sides of the camel that carries the bride in the wedding procession to her new home. Although functionally a pair, they are not woven at the same time like chubals or torbas on the same loom. we will now have the opportunity to look at 3 pairs of osmalyks with rare and exceptional drawings. This first pair utilizes a variation of alternating tree forms in the field to create both an interesting appearance as well as movement. Here, we're observing what I feel to be weaving excellence by a master weaver. The field drawing creates once again the feeling that we are looking through a window to heaven or to the next life. She accomplishes this by using 5 thick, dark tree trunks with delicately drawn branches between them overlying the white background. In the main border, the weaver alternates dark arrowheads location from side to side, along with choosing the proper color and size of the ashik ornament that I've highlighted here to create an effect that the border has wave-like motion rather than being static. The field design used on this osmalyk pair seemed familiar to me, but I didn't remember where I had previously seen it. I looked in depth through a variety of Turkmen rug books in my library and found a weaving in which the answer, I believe, was clear. The field design on the osmalyk appears to have been derived from ornaments seen on the elam or end skirt of this 16th century Yomut multi-gall main carpet. In the next few slides, we will see another example of a rare osmalyk's field design that also appears to be derived from the design in the elam of an older main carpet. Thought by most Turkmen collectors to be the greatest of the Yomut osmalyks, this wonderful piece that is in the Museum of Decorative Arts in Paris has an abstract drawing of a field of poppies that are flowering and uses the off-white color in the field to defocus your mind's processing of the design. The delicate but strong reciprocal border frames the field effectively, again creating the look through the window to the next life effect that great osmalyks utilize. The field design of the osmalyk appears to be derived from this group of 17th century Yomut main carpets, whose elams have a naturalistic floral drawing with Mughal design influence. The next group is an interesting one. I've chosen to call them the Yomut pictorial osmalyks. They include wonderful rendition of tribal members, camels in the wedding procession, horses, birds, various ornaments, trappings, and Turkmen jewelry. This wonderful osmalyk portrays in a detailed drawing the Turkmen wedding procession. It has several camels seen at the top, including a few small camels. These young camels symbolize the bride's fertility potential. This weaving also depicts osmalyks adorning the sides of the camels. The bride, as I talked about earlier, is seated in the kejibi, which is a small decorated tent-like structure on top of the camel. The group of pile osmalyks has ashik ornaments that are in the border of this one. This osmalyk is one that I really found interesting as I did a little bit of research. It has beautiful renditions of Turkmen silver jewelry. The bride in Turkmen culture is considered to be vulnerable to attack from evil spirits. Silver jewelry is an amulet that protects her against diseases and infertility. For this reason, the bride's wedding attire includes a silver jewelry headdress, a belt, bracelets, brooches, and footwear all decked out in silver. The complete outfit can weigh up to 80 kilograms. The central field has ornaments that appear to be tulips, and I found that tulips originate in the region of the Tian Shan mountain range that encompasses Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and China. This osmalik has a less formal, more nomadic feel, which is especially notable in the drawing of the tulip ornaments in the field and also in the ashik border. This creates an impression that this may be one or more generations older when compared to the previous osmalik. The top portion of the osmalik has a rare and wonderful drawing of village life with multiple yurts and also a woman and an animal at each side. The Yomut Turkmen lived in southern Turkmenistan near the border of Persia, which was the name of the country at the time that they were weaving these. They had a felt making process that probably was derived from the Persian technique. These two felt osmaliks depict a wedding procession with multiple camels, some of which have a kejibi and osmalik included on them. There are humans that appear to be holding something together or holding hands. And there's varied animals that are throughout the field. Here, it appears that a Central Asian leopard is chasing mountain goats. This next osmalik shares many of the same design features as the osmalik we just reviewed. It also has two men on horseback with weapons that appear to either be fighting or possibly hunting. Now, several years ago, I was told a really interesting story when I visited Peter Hofmeister at his home, that a great mystery actually surrounds this pair of felt osmaliks. They were in the collection of the museum in Ashgabat, and they were kept in a storage area for years without being on display. When someone entered the storage area, they came back hurriedly and reported that several objects were eaten almost completely by moths, with only wool dust remaining. The rare osmaliks were nowhere to be found. Their true status may never be known. The Eagle Gold group is not the name of an actual Turkmen tribe. It's a classification that's based on a structural and design analysis of weavings performed by Annette and Volker Rattenstangl and Siawash Azadi. They identified three groups of main carpets, what they call the Eagle Group 1, Eagle Group 2, and Eagle Group 3, along with smaller weavings that they could correlate the structure with the main carpets. It's only in Eagle Group 2 that we've actually seen weavings that we could identify as osmaliks for sure. We'll now take a close view of these. This group has ornaments that in the upper field has a very delicate drawing of the ram's horn or koshaks. It's surrounded again by the same diamonds that we saw in some of the other Yomut osmaliks. A distinctive feature is that it has multiple borders. And this one is almost always drawn, this inner multiple border is almost always drawn in the same way on all of the group. But the major border on the outside can vary, and we'll see on the next example how similar it looks, with the only thing being different really is the major outer border. There is tremendous diversity of design within a very small number of known examples of Ersari osmaliks. We're going to look at these a little more closely to help us understand. If you love botés like I do, the drawing on this Ersari osmalik is a splendid one. The boté ornament dates back to the Sasanian dynasty around 225 to 650. The design probably represented a floral spray and a cypress tree, which the Zoroastrians viewed as the symbol of life and eternity. Botés have been used to decorate the clothes of the nobility in Persia before coming to India, where the design was used in cashmere shawls. The Ersari tribe weaves the greatest number of small rugs with boté designs, but there are only two osmaliks that I have seen with a boté design. It was unclear from when I first looked at this picture if the osmolic was originally a 5-sided or 7-sided osmolic. I spoke to the owner, who felt that it was 5-sided, which is really very rare for within the small group of Ersari osmolics. The design of the Ersari osmolic here is harmonious and, as I mentioned, probably unique. The picture doesn't do justice to the exceptional beauty of this piece when seen with the proper lighting. A wonderful example of this group of Ersari osmolics is this one here, and it is by far the oldest. It has great colors, spaciousness, the feeling that the ornaments inside are actually spinning in the field, while the border does what it's supposed to do, creating the sense that we're looking through a window into the next world. It makes it easy to see why this osmolic is in the Museum of Fine Arts in San Francisco. There's not many Cyric osmolics, especially some that are older. The shape of this Cyric osmolic is interesting. Hybrid we have seen with the pentagonal and heptagonal weavings of the other tribes. The floral elements of this osmolic are precisely drawn. There's 2 varieties of flowers shown by the arrows here. They have different shapes and different colors. And by incorporating that design feature, the weaver creates the impression that the garden is alive. This specific osmolic appears at least 1 to 2 generations older than the other old Cyric osmolics with this design that I've seen. This Erebachi osmolic is only the second one ever discovered. The first is located in the Ethnographic Museum in St. Petersburg. There has been speculation that the first might even contain synthetic red dye. If so, it would certainly point that this osmolic is significantly older than that one in the St. Petersburg Museum, since this one has harmonious natural colors. It also has, in my estimation, a better drawing. It has many design features, such as eagles in the main border in the field, the wedding procession with camels at the bottom, the taknauska, or 2-headed animals at the top, the koshaks, or ram's horns, and great minor borders. All of these work so nicely together. It kind of reminds me of a Solor Ensi, where you have so many different design features, but when you step back and look at the whole Ensi, you are just amazed by how harmonious and the message that is given by everything in total. I only have one thing to say: a true masterpiece. Again, first look, first glance, designs may appear uncomplicated, but a more in-depth assessment uncovers the weaving techniques used by this Turkmen weaver to create this weaving. There's a relatively limited range of colors, but a large assortment of shades, which contribute to its alluring nature. The field has a progression of geometric ornaments that increase in number and boldness as it moves to the top. This is a design feature that you can find in a very limited number of other Turkmen weavings, main carpets, chuvals, and in my mind, it symbolizes the earth below and the heavens with stars above. We're now going to take a look at a group that I think is really interesting and beautiful. This is the embroidered osmolic group. Most of these osmolics are woven on a wool ground, and the embroidery is done either in silk or wool. The designs themselves appear to be derived from the end panels of cashmere shawls or other Mughal artifacts. Some of the finest ones incorporate the same stitch that you see in Suzani work. It's very possible that these osmolics were made in urban workshops. This wonderful osmolic depicts horses with riders, camels, dogs, and humans with weapons in addition to the 5 flowering plants shown in the field. A very delicate drawing of the floral elements is seen in this embroidery. Every other flower head, which is difficult to see, enhances the spaciousness of the drawing of this osmolic. This design effect was probably created by the weaver alternating the use of silk and wool embroidery thread for the flower heads. The silk embroidery tends to undergo corrosion, and when that happens, it leaves behind only a faint remnant of the design. Here's another wonderful example that uses a curvilinear budding leaf motif to create a feeling of background movement, like the wind is swirling around the plants. The border design on this osmolic is fabulous. Most of the embroidered osmolics that we know of were pentagonal. Here is one of 3 known examples of a rectangularly shaped embroidered osmolic that previously was in the Robert Pinner collection. All of the design elements of this are naturalistically drawn. The original flat woven decorative band is still present. It's used on the sides and the bottom of the osmolic. Interestingly enough, this is a design feature that is also used on techie pile osmolics, as I will highlight a bit later. There are 2 theories of what weavings the Salur tribe may have used as osmolics to decorate the bride's camel in their wedding processions. This group of embroidered osmolics with this specific drawing and design were attributed to the Salur over 80 years ago by Alfred Lieix in his book entitled Turkestan and Its Textile Crafts, originally published in 1941. No basis for this attribution was actually given. To my knowledge, no design analysis has been done on this group of osmolics to help clarify their tribal origin. We have just seen rectangular shaped techie embroidered osmolics. The second theory regarding Salur osmolics may be that they're rectangular, since there's no known 5 or 7-sided Salur pile weavings that are known. The group of trappings shown here have no flat woven backs that would be found on a storage bag. The original finished edges were not done in a way that is consistent with use as a storage bag. Based on the size of this group, which either has 1, 2, or 3 of these darwaza medallions, and interestingly enough, darwaza means gateway, which may fit very nicely with our theory of this being an osmolic. Probably the 2 darwaza size, because of the size of camels and their size, would have functioned as the osmolic. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to go in more depth and talk about the techie pile osmolics, which include both the bird and the animal tree. The Yomu tribes, as we talked about, always produced the largest variety, still do, and number of osmolics. This was probably the reason why bird osmolics were initially thought to be made by the Yomut by all of the leading scholars and collectors for over 75 years, until Siawash Azadi performed a structural and color analysis of the bird osmolics in St. Petersburg in 1974 and confirmed their techie origin. I will add throughout the next several slides additional support to Azadi's conclusions. The animal tree design is an ornament dating back thousands of years. It's been used by a great diversity of cultures. It's been seen on Central Asian carpets dating back to at least the 15th century. In order to develop a chronology of the techie animal tree osmolics, we'll compare some features between the members of the group. The techie animal tree osmolic on the left, which appears older to me, has a more spacious drawing, with the size of the compartments within the lattice being larger. I've taken the liberty to create a little comparison where I've used the same size diamond and shown how less of the compartment volume is filled on the left than on the right, but I know you could probably see that anyhow. In addition, the drawing of the tree form is more detailed. The leaves of the lattice, interestingly enough, are singular on the older one and wedge-shaped comparatively to having two leaves on the later one. The border drawing is more refined on the earlier one. In addition, the base of the tree is present and drawn with a more sophisticated three-dimensional appearance. We will see the significance of these differences in relation to defining the relative ages of the Techie animal tree osmalyks in a few moments. But first, here's another piece of supporting evidence for Azadi's conclusion that Techie pile osmalyks are indeed Techie in origin. And that is the almost indistinguishable appearance of the animal tree ornament that we see at the bottom of the animal tree enses that are known to be Techie, as well as in the osmalyks. Enses are door coverings for the yurt. And as I mentioned previously, Azadi had already done a comparison of structural and color analysis of characteristics. And with this analysis and these design features, I think we are giving even more validation that these pieces are Techie. As seen here, we see two animal tree osmalyks that are from the slightly later group, and they're very homogeneous. I've had the opportunity to see 5 or 6, if not more, of this group, and you could find little details that are different, but overall very, very similar. Now, this next animal tree osmalyk has no other known examples that I've seen similar to it. Since osmalyks are woven in pairs, you would expect that there is another one out there, but it hasn't surfaced. This one has been known for a long time, since it was published in John Thompson's book, Turkmen. It differs from the classic animal tree osmalyks because there's no lattice in the field. The trees are drawn in a different fashion, as shown in this close-up here. The main borders are rare, and if there are animals flanking the tree, they're very stylized as compared to the Taknaska animals that are well known in the other animal tree osmalyks. This piece, in my estimation, is the oldest animal tree osmalyk of the group. It also, I think, serves another important purpose. I think it may be a missing link between the early Techie bird osmalyks and the later ones. We'll see similarities that this piece shares with both the early and the later group of Techie bird osmalyks. Let's take a look. By merging these images, I think we can see several relationships in the design between the older animal tree osmalyk and the what I'll call the early Techie bird osmalyk. First, both have the Taknaska gall within the compartments. Second, the lattice is constructed with single wedge-shaped leaves. The drawing of the borders is almost identical between the two types of osmalyks. When we try merging the image of the older animal tree osmalyk and a later bird osmalyk, we see a high degree of discordance, except for one feature where the tree branches project 45 degrees from the vertical. Based on this combination of design findings obtained from the two merged images, I think we start to establish a chronology that would place the early Techie bird osmalyks as the oldest, followed by the older animal tree osmalyk weaving, and then the later Techie bird osmalyks. both the 18th century bird osmalic and the 18th century animal tree osmalic have almost an identical drawing of the border design, with the horizontal end border of this carbon 14 dated 16th century techie main carpet. I believe this adds further support that the design relationship seen in the old osmalics are techie in origin. Now, we know of about 20 techie bird osmalics. There are another 11 that I'm not showing here that also make up the group. 3 of the 20 techie bird osmalics that have been published are missing. Their whereabouts unknown. A little bit later, I will show some images of these missing birds and also discuss an unhappy ending. Samuel Duden, who was an ethnographic explorer, photographer, and artist, during 2 expeditions to Central Asia in 1900 and 1901, collected 2 pairs of bird osmalics. The 2 pairs were very different in design features. About 14 years later, in 1915, one of the osmalics was first published. This was done by Baron Felkerzem, who was an art historian and Russian nobleman. He loved the collection. He would go and review it at the museum and visit it multiple times. He then published 2 comprehensive articles about the collection, which included 2 full-page photographs, one of the running bird, this one exactly shown here, and also an animal tree osmalic. It was published in the St. Petersburg art magazine called Stary Godi, which in English translates to old years. Kurt Moncasi and I spoke about osmalics this last week. Kurt suggested a theory that bird osmalics that we identify as later may have been woven in the same time period as the earlier ones by traveling weaving specialists who create osmalics with iconic designs. They would then be sold to the families for the daughter's wedding. His theory was that the time to complete them would have been quicker, the cost cheaper for this less detailed, somewhat generic version. I've had the opportunity to travel to and explore many remote regions and cultures. It's one of my passions. I've seen how time, in combination with exposure to new outside influences, usually lead to a degeneration in the quality of the art product or experience. C.A. Debode in 1841 traveled, like I do, maybe even more, extensively throughout Persia and encountered many Turkmen tribes. His book, Travels in Luristan and Arabistan, was published in 1845 and gave a fascinating insight into this issue. One of the best stories that I encountered regarding the Turkmen in his writings was that Turkmen girls get married very young. They get married around age 10 to 12. The boys maybe around age 15. The couple will spend 3 nights together, and then the young woman returns to her family. At that point, she goes for 2 to 3 years living with her family and weaving the different weavings for her dowry. At the time that she's completed that, the procession, which we've shown on multiple osmalics, takes her to the groom's parents' yurt, where she lives with the groom for a year. During that time, I think the reason a year was selected, being the obstetrician gynecologist that I am, to allow for the birth of the first offspring. Once that happens, the couple usually goes and has their own yurt to move forward from there. Given that there was not an extreme rush to get these pieces done, I really believe that the later techie bird osmalics were woven at a later time and not at the same time as the early ones. This overview, I think, tells it all. In the older one on top, a three-dimensional appearance, it's spacious, the size is bigger, it has outrageous colors, and a feeling of a beautiful choreography at work. There's, of course, significantly less bird ornaments, 16 versus 34, and the birds are realistically drawn, and they have, as we'll see when I magnify these and look in more detail, quite a different range of features. It does help to see everything in more detail. The more realistically drawn bird osmolic on the left has a little neckband or necklace that's not present on the later one. The beak design is well delineated. The leaves themselves are wedge-shaped and have other ornamentation inside. The Taknauska animal is present within the compartment and it's not on the later group. The bird rests on a diamond perch and the base is curvilinear. It's drawn with a kind of interwoven three-dimensional design. And this is what is seen in almost all of the older bird osmolics as compared to the later group. Now, I showed you a picture before of the first osmolic ever published. This is a close-up of it in comparison to, that's a running bird osmolic on the left, in comparison to a seated bird osmolic on the right. They're both older group osmolics. What we can see is, of course, the running bird has the legs splayed. It's slightly less naturalistically drawn than the bird osmolic on the right. The seated bird has the beak and neckband present, and there's a greater range of colors used in the seated bird osmolic. I may be creating a false impression when I say later techie bird osmolics, and I don't want to create the impression that I don't think they're beautiful. That is very far from accurate. This specific osmolic is my personal favorite of the later group of techie bird osmolics. This weaving is in the Textile Museum, and although it has more birds, about 27, and it does have wedge-shaped leaves, and it does have a beautifully drawn border and a very stately presence that suggests that this may be one of the oldest of what we'll call the later group. Now, 3 of the known older bird osmolics have an additional feature that I really like, and that is that the birds themselves are facing in different directions. This techie bird osmolic has only one bird located in the upper left of the field whose orientation is different, facing left, from the rest of the other 18 birds that are facing to the right. Now it's time to look in more detail at a very interesting group, and that's the small number of techie birds that have disappeared under mysterious circumstances. This next bird osmolic is an important one for 3 reasons. It only has 12 total birds, creating a very spacious drawing. Second, another unique feature is that the 2 top rows of birds face rightward, and the bottom 2 rows of the birds face leftward. Third, after it was sold by Perez and Company, its whereabouts no one knows where it is. Its whereabouts remain a mystery. No really good picture is available. Even with this poor image, I can see that this osmolic has all the features of the early group and hopefully will show up very soon. Remember, Rug Collectors Weekend. We'll get to that at the end. This techie bird osmolic, another one of the missing group, is one of the ones that I really want to have the opportunity to see in person. Originally was published in 1927 by Gogol and has been missing almost 100 years since that time. Again, no other known photographs. It's a very interesting piece in that it is a running bird osmolic, but like the two running bird osmolyks in St. Petersburg Museum, different from those, it has the ornaments like the beak and the neckband shown in a much more realistic fashion. And I think it may be even older than the pair of running bird osmolyks that was collected by Duden in 1900. This slide shows what happens to an older techie bird osmolyk that flies in a no-fly zone. In 2014, during a sabbatical that I took, I traveled first to the Altai Mountains to live with the Kazakh eagle hunters and learn about falconry firsthand. After that wonderful adventure, I traveled for several weeks throughout Europe to have the opportunity to see in person many of the older techie bird osmolyks. I was able to visit dealers, collectors, museums who were kind enough to allow me to visit and study their techie bird osmolyks. As I was walking through Prague on this sunny day, my first impression when I looked up at this building was actually kind of a gruesome one, with what appeared to be a person that had been lynched. Actually, on closer inspection, like so many things in life, it was not really as it appeared. This statue of one of the world's most famous physicians actually provided a clue to a techie bird osmolyk I would soon encounter. Sigmund Freud's techie bird osmolyk resides in the Freud Museum in London. It's usually on display in his office study area. It's available for all of us to go visit. Now, like some of the other ones that I mentioned of the older group, birds are present facing in different directions. And in his, like in the last one I showed, this occurs even in the same row. The weaving has a dark aubergine field color. It also has the original flat woven decorative band that's still present on the sides and the bottom. Now, the drawing does differ from all the other older techie bird osmolyks in a few ways. First of all, there are no Taknauska animals present on the diamond-shaped compartments with the birds. Secondly, the birds' bodies are highly decorated with tiny crosses. Third, there's black tassels that are not present on any of the other bird osmolyks. These details are best seen on my next slide with some close-up views. Here's the dark aubergine color that we can obviously see. We also notice, as highlighted by these blue arrows, a variety of other little talismans in each compartment along with the birds, but again, no Taknauska animals. The beaks and the neck bands are present. And as I talked about, all of the birds are decorated with these tiny crosses. My overall impression in studying many of the bird osmolyks is this may be one of the latest of the early group. Now here's another image of the first techie bird osmolyk ever published in 1914, the running bird osmolyk that is in the St. Petersburg Ethnographic Museum. The 12 birds present in this osmolyk are very artfully drawn, the whole thing, the movement. The green arrows that I've added here show that although the actual birds themselves are not naturalistically drawn, there's something about having the splayed legs and the movement that gives it a magical feeling of the bird being alive. I would love to see, as I said before, the missing running bird osmolyk that was published by Gogol in 1927, in which the drawing of the bird has all of the really cool features associated with the older bird osmolyks. Here's also a better picture of a beautiful flat woven decorative band that again is originally present with techie bird osmolyks. This is another wonderful example of the older group of techie bird osmolyks, and it was acquired by George Heckscher many years ago. It has all of the key features that I've emphasized throughout today's presentation. I'm fascinated by the story of how this next techie bird Asmalyk was involved in one of the world's most significant events over 200 years ago. Who would have thought that the story would begin with Napoleon? Specifically, his defeat and his abdicating the throne in May of 1814, which brought an end to 23 years of continuous war. Napoleon was exiled, as we all know, on the island of Elba. During this time frame, the Vienna Peace Conference, led by Prince Metternich, began in the fall of 1814 with the goals of restoring the balance of power in Europe. The Congress continued despite the outbreak of fighting that happened because Napoleon escaped from exile and resumed his power in France. This next period of time was very famous, from March to July of 1815, called the 100 Days. On March 25th, 1815, Austria, Prussia, Russia, and the United Kingdom, the four great powers, knew that they had to join together, and they committed to sending 150,000 men each to fight Napoleon and end his rule. The last conflict in the Napoleonic Wars, the defeat of Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo, was on June 18th, 1815. The Congress's final act was signed a few days before Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo. If you look at the bottom of the slide, you will see three very prophetic statements of what the goals of the Congress were. Almost 50 years ago, this techie bird Asmalyk that I was mentioning was purchased from the Countess du Parc, who was a relative of Prince von Metternich, who originally was the Austrian ambassador to France starting in 1806. Now, Metternich gained Napoleon's confidence and actually was the one who arranged his marriage to the Austrian Emperor's daughter, Marie Louise, in 1810. As time progressed, Metternich realized it was better to stop Napoleon's acquisition of more power, so he secretly played a key role in the defeat Napoleon experienced in 1814 and 1815. In this creatively modified painting of the participants of the Vienna Peace Conference in 1815, Count Karl Robert Nesselrode of the Russian delegation presents the techie bird Asmalyk to Prince von Metternich. I would like to extend my appreciation to all the various collectors, dealers, auction houses, and museums who were kind enough to share images with me of these rare Asmalyks for today's webinar. I want to extend a special thank you to Simon Toth for both his expertise in photographing rugs and textiles, as well as his gracious help in improving the appearance of the slides for this presentation. Thank you. Lastly, I want to give you some information on Rug Collectors Weekend. At the bottom of this slide is Brian Morehouse's email, where you can get registered and also learn more about it. It's going to be taking place exactly a month from now. Michael Rothberg and I will be presenting Turkmen chevals. Here's a sample of a few of them. We hope that you all can join us, and hopefully the experience today was a good one. If you have questions beyond what we'll do in the Q&A, I wanted to just go back and let you see at the bottom of this slide is my email, and you're more than welcome to reach out to me. Thank you all.
And thank you, Alan, for a great presentation, many wonderful examples that you shared. We have quite a few questions. So let's dig right in. Please, any members of the audience who have questions, type them in Q&A. None of you raising your hands will be ignored. None of you putting into chat will get answered. Only questions put in Q&A will go into the queue. So someone wants to know where you purchased your Asmalyks.
Well, I would say the majority were purchased in Europe, and but so, some at auctions, some from dealers, and some directly from collectors.
Wonderful. And a sharp-eyed member of the New England Rug Society, which, by the way, is what NERS stands for, observed that the camels in your weavings are mostly dromedaries and rarely Bactrian camels, whereas Bactrians were more common in Central Asia. Do you have an explanation for the camel species?
I don't. When I did visit the Kazakh eagle hunters in 2014, camels definitely had two humps.
Interesting. And these weavings were put on the camels that transported the brides. Do you think all brides had Asmalyks or only the wealthier brides?
I really don't know the answer to that, but my guess would be that it was an important part of the whole cultural experience. And there probably was, at least in my estimation, that all brides would go through the same process.
Thank you. 5 is a number that seems to appear frequently. Do you think there's any significance to the number 5?
I wanted to know the answer to that myself. So I spoke to about, I should say 5, several really experienced collectors or dealers. And I could not come up with a explanation. So I would love to hear if someone could share with me that information. Please send it in either a chat, I'm sorry, the question and answer now, or a email to me.
We have many notes appreciating your presentation and thanking you. And one person who starts with a note of appreciation takes issue with the story about the origin of the boaties in the Ursari Asmalyk. And
sorry,
also
again,
to the second half of the 19th century. Any comments, or is this something that
I didn't
poser this question should debate with you separately?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. So could you just rephrase that real quickly?
Sure. The boaties in one of the Ursaris. And by the way, there's a lot of static. Everybody should be muted. If there's a member of the audience who isn't muted, please mute yourself. The boaties in the Ursari Asmalyk that you showed.
Yeah.
You mentioned an ancient derivation, and the questioner says that they originate with cashmere shawls and indicate a 19th century, late 19th date for that. Any comments, or is this perhaps a debate to be carried on over email in more detail?
I would only say that the cashmere shawls probably got the design from Persia, and that they were in use way before that. And so I'll just leave it at that. So my sense is that it's very possible that the design was present much earlier. And we can talk more, via email. And I welcome that.
Thank you. Do you have any idea what kinds of trees are depicted in the tree Asmalyks?
Well, I know that cypress trees are certainly one of the trees that is talked about. And I mentioned a little bit how the Zoroastrians see them representing, long life and eternity. But I don't know beyond that. It's the tree Asmalyks that I showed at the very beginning, the 5-sided Yomut ones. People have commented that maybe they're pine trees. When I've traveled through Central Asia and been in some of the areas, I did see, more of the evergreen variety trees that were there. but there's also a lot of desert. So I really don't know what was used by the tribes, what they were modeling.
Okay. I'm going to try to whip through because there are a lot of questions here, and I want to give members of the audience the opportunity to engage with you. One of the members of the audience understands that Asmalyk actually means hanging, and it is derived from the verb asmag, A-S-M-A-G-H, meaning to hang. He postulates that Hermann was confusing Asman or sky with asmag. Comments?
Sure. So when I when I started the talk, my original slide, and let's see if I can, well, it doesn't matter, that showed the camel, and I said, to hang. And then I did several hours of trying to translate different things. So asmak is in Turkish to hang. No question about that. But if you break the prefix and the suffix of Asmalyk apart, you will find the things that I alluded to. And so it's really hard to know. And so we weren't back there when they came, but it's interesting again that you can find in Turkmen, which was way back when only a spoken language for a long time, something that they say, in fact, let me just go back to make it really easy. So that the ASM prefix is sky or heaven, and you can find the Malik, lord or ruler, and I'm pretty sure that that's in Persian or Farsi.
Motifs similar to the feet on the bird and the running bird Asmalyks appear frequently in Teki weaving.
Yes.
Could this be an instance of the part signifying the whole?
It very well could be. Someone brought that up to me just last week, and so I haven't had a chance to look at that in exquisite detail, but I agreed with them that there is.
Alan has frozen for a minute. We will sit for a minute and hope that he unfreezes. I think there's a little bit of an internet glitch on his side, which may be contributing to the static. Alan, why don't you try jumping to Wi-Fi? And if that doesn't bring you back to life, we'll just have to end Q&A. All right, for members of the audience who are still with us, our speaker has logged out. We're hoping he is able to log back in really quickly and continue to answer your questions. And if that doesn't happen in a moment or two, I will thank you all and end the webinar. Looks like Alan is not able to get in quickly. So I would urge everyone who has questions to note Alan's email that was on the last slide and submit your questions to Dr. Alan Rothblatt in writing. Thank you all for joining us today. Here is Alan. All right, Alan, unmute yourself, please.
I'm back.
Okay, you are back, and let's see if we're able to keep you on the internet. For many people have logged off. But for those of you who are still on and still would like to get questions, what period did the techie silk embroidered osmalyks come into fashion? And when did they die out? Did anyone else besides the techie make embroidered osmalyks?
So I can answer the latter question, which there's a theory that possibly the one osmalyk that I showed that's pentagonal in shape might be a Solor osmalyk. The timing that they came into fashion, I'm guessing what you mean is when do we think that the pieces were woven? And I kind of see them as a circa 1800 for the early ones. I don't, the thing is, it's constructed of a something that doesn't survive as well. And so even though they're valued pieces and they may be put in a dowry chest, there's more chance that they may not survive. So I'm not really sure if there could have been much older ones.
Okay, we're going to try and get through the remaining questions really quickly. And anyone who doesn't feel they get a sufficiently detailed enough answer, they can email you. You noted the large number of Yomud and Teki Asmalyks, much smaller numbers from the other tribes. What do you think? Did the other tribes use rectangular trappings more commonly? And do the Kejbaliks, I may have, starts with a K, I may not have pronounced it right, share many characteristic with the Asmalyks you showed?
Okay, so just very quickly, I don't have a good reason for why there are fewer Sarik, Ersari, Arabachi Asmalyks. That's something that I certainly don't know, other than we could look at tribal size, and the Teki were a very large group, but clearly the tribe that really likes to have all the wedding accoutrements was the Yomut, and that, really in answer to that earlier question, where did every woman have the opportunity to have an osmalyk? If she was Yomut, I'd say for sure. I'm less sure about that with the other tribes.
And what happened to these beautiful pieces after the wedding celebrations?
I think that they were, in most cases, again, their structure was not such that they were used as bags. They were either hung up within the yurt, brought out for special occasions, maybe, or just carefully packed away. But again, the environments were still very harsh.
And one questioner would like to understand these tribes. Were they raising sheep and goats, or was the sheep and goat hair purchased?
I would say that almost all of the tribes raise sheep and goats, that the only tribe that really is interesting was the ones that cultivated mulberry trees and silkworms, which was the Goklan, or one of the Eagle Gold groups, but not Eagle Group 2, where we saw the Osmalyks from, but that's Eagle Group 1. So otherwise, yes, all the tribes did raise sheep.
And for the people who are asking about Rug Collectors Weekend, it is taking place in Santa Ynez.
Thank you.
In California. And you can email morehousebride at AOL.com. You can email me or Alan to get that email and ask about an invitation. It is coming up end of April. And Alan, what I most remember from Rug Collectors Weekend, the last Rug Collectors Weekend, was your Techie bird Asmalyk. It was so incredibly beautiful. I mean, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. Are you going to bring another Asmalyk this year to Rug Collectors Weekend?
Well, that's a great question. The answer is no, but I will bring some chuvals that I hope come close to making you feel the same way.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Can't wait to see you out there, and I hope other members of our audience whom I haven't met, who've been on these webinars, will come to, along with many rug collector friends who will be in Santa Ynez. Alan, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Julia, thank you to our great audience from all over the world. We really enjoyed doing this. Our next webinar for the New England Rug Society is Michael Rothblatt on Michael Rothberg, coming after Alan Rothblatt, speaking about saddlebags on April 9th. And you will receive an invitation link to that webinar, the last one that we're putting on until the next season starts. You will be receiving that if you have registered for this webinar. So again, goodbye and thank you to everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Jean. Thanks, Julia. Can I just say one quick thing? And that is, I just want to let people know that if you come to the Rug Collectors Weekend, you don't have to feel, if you're a new collector, like it's going to be intimidating. It's a very friendly environment. You'll learn a lot. You'll see a lot of great pieces. So please come and join us. What we want to do is encourage as many people to be part of the rug community.
All right. Thank you, Alan. Goodbye, everyone.